Philip Shepard shares this quote, "The quest is in the question." And yet when we come to write our books, to share our words, we often think we have to have the answers. We often think we need to tell the reader what they're supposed to be getting from our words. In today's episode of The Written Compass, I want to flip that completely and share some tips on why you do not have to have the answers and why that will make your writing even more powerful. I'm so excited you are here, so let's dive right in. In one of our recent team meetings, one of our amazing one-on-one writing coaches, Jeannie, was talking about how she was working with one of our clients and they were getting really frustrated because they were struggling to tell some of the stories that they wanted to share in the book that they're working on. And that client was sharing, like, I don't know how to tell my stories. I'm getting stuck on some of the wording for it. And then as Jeannie coached her a little bit and asked her some important questions, what really got revealed is, well, I know I'm going to need to tell the reader what to think about this story and kind of the so what message that they should get from it. And so that's really tripping me up. And so in today's episode of The Written Compass, I really want to talk about how writing is not about getting to an answer necessarily, and how you do not have to have the answers in order to start writing, in order to share your words, in order to publish. You don't have to have the answer. So let's get started. I hope this episode is just a big, deep breath and exhale of relief for you. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Today's episode is a fun one because you don't have to have all the answers. I'm curious what shows up when I just even say those words. You don't have to have all the answers. In writing, we are typically taught that you need to know what you're going to say before you start to write it or in order to start to write it. And I've talked in many episodes before on this podcast how that is just not true. Writing as an embodiment tool is a way to process, is a way to explore, is a way to discover what you want to write. So if we follow that train of thought and that belief, then we don't have to know the answers. And what's so interesting is there's the way that we come to writing or reading someone else's writing is we are bringing our own histories and stories as a communicator, a storyteller, just someone who has lived experiences. And we're coming together with these words that are kind of captured on the page. And those words have the author's stories and histories all lined up behind it. And one philosophy is that the reader is just supposed to read those words and get, quote, get the message out of them. And it better be the right message. You better understand it correctly. This was often, if you ever took a literature class in college, this was often the way it was taught. It's called new traditional thinking. And it's just this idea that the message is out there. You just got to figure it out. And I come, again, I've shared this before on the podcast, more from a social constructivism feeling, a social constructionism, which is the idea that I'm bringing my own understanding and perspectives and views. And I'm coming together with this new one created through these words and presented to me in this book. And those two things are going to come together and create new meaning. And if that's true, there is absolutely no way that as a writer, I could decide or much less dictate what that new meaning is. And there's a lot of freedom in that. Because I get to sit down and just be with my words and trust that whatever shows up is going to come together with the reader and meet them right where they are. And they're going to receive whatever they need to receive. And they're going to share things in my writing that I didn't even know was there. And it's just such a place of relief to be in when you realize you don't have to have the answers. And this is really interesting in the business and personal growth book writing area of nonfiction, because a lot of times people come to those because they think themselves that they need an answer, right? And yet when you think about the books that impact you the most, is it because they had an answer that they were giving you? Or is it because they offered you the opportunity, the space to explore and find your own answers? Now, I'm not saying there's plenty of people who are in our programs and writing books, and I do this as well, who don't have statements, who don't have, this is what I believe, this is what has been helpful to me. And they kind of offer some tips and tricks and things like that. It's not that those things are bad or even, we need them in these books. And it's different to come at those places as, I'm going to tell you the answer, dear reader, and rob you of the opportunity to explore and find your own answers. There's a difference in coming from that place versus, here's what I know to be true. Here's what I have discovered in my own journey, and then left it open for the reader to come to their own understandings, come to their own journeys. Yes, maybe try on some of the ideas that the author is providing, and also have space for them to find themselves within those tips and tricks. Does that make sense? So what we did was support this writer of ours who was coming and really struggling with this idea of like, I need to be able to tell the reader what they're supposed to think, the so what from this. And as soon as Jeannie started to ask questions and support her and going, I hear what you're saying. And when I read your story, here's what I got. Here's what I'm thinking about. And the author was blown away. The writer was blown away. Like, I never would have thought of that. And so if she had decided in that chapter to say, hey, reader, maybe not directly, right? But hey, reader, this is what you're supposed to get from this. Then Jeannie couldn't have that experience. She couldn't have that opportunity to make her own meaning and take that story, take that idea that she was sharing off into a new place, a place that the writer could never imagine. And that is powerful. It is powerful to not have the answers. So just take a deep breath and feel into what it might be like to lift the pressure off of you. I did it off of my shoulders because that's where it shows up for me, that you don't have to have the answers. You are an expert in what you are sharing in your writing because it is you and is coming from your lived experiences. And that doesn't mean that you have to dictate for the reader what they're supposed to get from it. And therefore, you don't have to have the answers. You're simply offering an invitation, offering the opportunity to share your words, your experiences, let them show up with theirs as well, and see what gets to happen from there. So I hope this was a fun episode to explore. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to come over to Instagram at @ShaynaHartman_. Share this episode, share your thoughts on it, and tag me when you do. Thanks so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of The Written Compass. If you are loving this content, then please share this episode and tag me on Instagram at @ShaynaHartman_. And if you're wondering how you can implement the ideas I share here and really begin creating your amazing book, I want to connect with you even more. Head over to shaynahartman.com/thewrittencompass to learn even more about not only writing your book, but truly experiencing your words.